I'm Abdullah, and I'm here to talk on our paper about physical layer attacks on CAN bus. To start with the goal, or the goal of the adversary, rather, is to break the integrity of the CAN bus transmission by causing multiple bit flips on the frame that is being transmitted, specifically the dominant to recessive bit flip. The other way around, recessive to dominant, is, as the terminology suggests, it's trivial. So to achieve that, we begin with understanding the architecture of an ECU. It has a microcontroller interfaced with the CAN transceiver. And so what our adversary does is it compromises the software of the microcontroller. By doing so, it can bypass, through methods such as return-oriented programming, it can bypass the CAN peripheral and instead connect the GPIO peripheral to the output pins of the multiplexer. That gives the adversary the ability to transmit at any data rate, transmit any data pattern, and also bypass the arbitration process of the CAN protocol. So multiple such ECUs, as you can see in Figure 2, collaboratively work together in synchronization to alter the data that is being sent by the victim ECU B. So this enables a man-in-the-middle attack, as we can see in the Figure 3. When compared to the other attacks, such as impersonation attacks, we don't need to wait to spoof. We don't need to wait to spoof the victim ECU. Instead, we can start attacking on the fly. Briefly talking on the working of the physical layer of the CAN transceiver, we have two transistors, either BJTs or FETs, at the output that control whether it's dominant or recessive. For dominant transmissions, these transistors actively pull the CAN high and CAN low lines to the supply and ground respectively. For recessive bit transmissions, they are off and the lines are left to float or in high impedance state. So this helps our adversary, as the theory of attack is explained in the figures. The first plot shows the bits that is being transmitted by the legitimate ECU, and the second plot shows the attack starts at 20 microseconds. The rogue ECU starts transmitting at a much higher data rate from 20 microseconds. And we see the effects in plot C. Whenever there is a flip, whenever the rogue ECU flips from dominant to recessive, there is a transient observed on the bus. This is because the FETs are on during dominant, and they actively pull the line back when the other ECUs try to bring it down. This causes a transient. We seek to exploit these transients. We would like to increase their magnitude and time them so that they come when the receiver samples the bit. The other way around, recessive to dominant, is very trivial, as we can see near the end of 40 microseconds. All the adversary needs to do is to transmit dominant, and it does not have arbitration process, so the bus becomes dominant. The impact of the attack, it compromises both the authenticity and integrity. If the ECUs are using ID to authenticate, it can modify that ID, flip the bits of the ID, and break that authenticity. It can also undermine the existing physical layer identification defense systems by launching a type of hill climbing attack on bit level. And our threat model, where a GPIO peripheral can be used instead of CAN peripheral, open the doors and makes easy many inter and intra-frame CAN bus attacks. For example, the ones in the literature, duet attack, which needs an accomplice to synchronize with the victim because it needs to wait for a certain time. It does not have to do that if the GPIO peripheral is connected. Similarly, the defense raid to duet can also be defeated by the attack because the GPIO peripheral can sense the data on the bus at much higher rate. How we design the attack. So the main parameters that we need to optimize is the number of rogue ECUs that are needed, and what should be the data rate, and what should be the data pattern, what should be the duty cycle. So we designed the SPICE model for a practical CAN transceiver, and on the right you see, on Figure 6, you see the model, adversarial model. We have legitimate ECU communicating with the legitimate receiver, and rogue ECUs around them trying to modify the bits. So these are the simulation results. Our optimizer gave out around 10 rogue ECUs are needed. And you can see in figure 7a, the transients are now much higher in magnitude. And if you zoom in figure 7b, we can see that the differential voltage comes down and even crosses the threshold that is required to flip the bit. And these are some performance trends. As the number of, in figure 8a, as the number of rogue ECUs increases, the minimum voltage on the bus increases. And from around 7 attackers, it's below the threshold. And on figure 8b, we see the as higher the duty cycle, as narrow the dominant to recessive switch is for the rogue ECU, it's better for the attack. But after certain duty cycle, for example, after 95%, we don't see an effect. It's possible because the hardware transceiver is not able to register such a quick transition. So we have demonstrated through simulation that 8 or more rogue ECUs can achieve the bit flips. Our work currently is in progress to realize this on hardware. We would like to reduce the number of rogue ECUs, synchronize them so that they can work collaboratively, and timing these transients at their sample instant.